Yo, what's up YouTube? It's Nate from Team Learning and Growing, and we got some big news in the world of Dragon Ball Super card game this morning. Bandai has finally released the Set 16 banned and errata list, and I for one am extremely grateful that they finally did it because I've definitely grown a little tired of the Set 15 meta that we were playing in since Nationals, since before Nationals. And so I'm really ready for Bandai to shake things up on us, and they really did. They really did. I think that you're gonna hear. I'm gonna go through all my thoughts for what I think about this ban list, but I think that Bandai overall really did a good job. I have some issues here and there, but I'll go into them as we get to each card. And so, without further ado, let's get right into it. All right. So we're on the Dragon Ball Super card game Facebook page. They have released the list, and so we're going to be talking about it here. The first card on the ban, on the chopping block, was Unrelenting Soul Trunks, and I gotta say, was not expecting this. I play against Gogeta Xeno a fair amount. One of our teammates on Learning and Growing, Noel, he has a deck profile on the channel. He plays this deck, and I play against him all the time, and this card was not the card I thought needed addressing from this list. For those of you who don't know, when this card is sent to the warp from deck or battle area, so that means through the Gogeta Xeno leader effect, or by warping itself after using its overrealm, it goes right back to hand. What it does is give Gogeta Xeno a really consistent way of putting their cards from their drop back into their warp through the overrealm. It's just a 15k stick, and it's also free 5k combo power because it repeatedly comes back to hand, so it's really a net zero every time it's played. It also has the added benefit of overwhelming, which is when you put your Gokus and Vegetas, when you fuse, you put them back in your drop, and then you just put them back in your warp through this card, and it gives you more fuel for your fusion plays. Albeit, this card is extremely consistent, and it's very crucial to the deck, but I really didn't think that this was a card that needed addressing. Now that this is banned, Gogeta Xeno players are not, I don't feel like they're going to feel the hit of this card all that much. They can still play the other 3-drop Trunks that basically draws 2 and warps 1. Effectively also having that gain in hand advantage that this card would have put itself back in the hand, whereas the other Trunks kind of gives you another card, and also allows you to warp a card out of your hand, which could be the Kai that gives you the free Unison, which isn't as impactful because of something else on this ban list, but it's definitely something that is a great either substitute or, you know, accompaniment to this card being banned. But overall, I mean, it is going to be an interesting little nudge for Gogeta Xeno. Is it really going to change how they play the deck? I don't think so. Like, now they can play it a little more slowly. And instead of overwhelming for this 15k body, now they can really go into, like, Beyond All Limits, or Feigned Greeting, which are 30k overwhelms for, you know, it's 3 more cards that they need in their drop, but that's no problem for Gogeta Xeno, and I think that this hit, it's barely going to affect them at all. Next card we have is Food Shrouded in Mystery. Mixed feelings about this card. Actually, not mixed feelings. I'm grateful. I'm super happy that this card got banned. I hate playing it in a deck. I hate it being played against me. It just felt so necessary for a lot of decks that play the long game, play the you know, more of a mid-rangey too long till late game composition. It was an instant win. You know, you tap 6 if they didn't have a response, if they weren't playing blue or they weren't playing yellow, quote unquote, you know, maybe it could be rested if they have Bloodlust, if they have other cards. It was an instant win. You won the game because they couldn't react. It's a double strike, it's a 30k. Like, if you have a decent board established, halfway decent board established, this card is winning you the game on turn 6 or turn 7. Turn 7 especially. Turn 6 is iffy, turn 7 is a definite win. I am super happy that I no longer have to include this card in my deck. I didn't want to have to think about playing this card. And really, this was just an emergence. It was just a panic button. I'm an Icarus player, in case anyone was unaware of what deck I was playing. It's in the... I have a video on the channel also. But I'm very, very happy that I can now free up some space from my deck list, that I no longer have to play this card. Yeah, what else is there to be said? I am very I'm very supportive of the idea that cards shouldn't be instant wins. I think that dropping cards on late turns, especially when you play decks that get to those late turns and just winning you the game, turning the tide, Shrouded in Mystery, there are just cards that just say, hey, I got to this point in the game. Sorry, and so I'm supportive of the fact that this got banned. And finally, we have the Cell Surge leader, which I know the community has been very it's been an absolute two separate camps. There are those who think it's absolutely fair and that, you just got to be a better player. And there are people that think that this is completely unfair and that this needed to go immediately. I think I'm in the camp that it was pretty unfair for the sole reason of it being uninteractive. You don't need to swing. You don't need to hit your opponent at all. You don't need to touch your opponent. You can literally wait. They could be at 8 life and you just wait until they have 0 cards in hand. And then boom, you poke them. They take a life. Now they have 1 card in hand. You rip it out of their hand. You smack them again. They have 1, maybe 2 cards in hand. You have a double striker. Boom, you take those 2 cards out of their hand. This leader really made the game unfun to play because, for one, you had to really try to rush it down, and some decks weren't able to do that. Some decks just didn't have the capacity to put pressure on this deck early. And if this deck got to late game, if this deck got to mid game even, you were playing the game with no cards in hand. And that's just so super unfun. There were few decks that could actually keep up with the hand size with draw power. And even then, why would you want, when your deck is meant to have a big hand and then they're just ripping cards, so now you're a normal deck, what's even the point? I think what could have been differently done to this leader, instead of having to ban it, just make them swing. If they got this effect off their swing instead of just an activate main, I think it instantly becomes a more fair deck. Now they have to interact. Now they have to give you cards, even hit battle cards. They just have to do things to their opponent, which opens up avenues of play for counterplay. I think, am I upset it got banned? Not at all. Do I think that it needed to get banned? It could have probably suffered from being eroded, but other than that, something had to be done for this leader, and I'm glad something was. Next up, we go into the limited list. The only card that was limited was Power of Super Saiyan. Breaks my heart, absolutely. As an Icarus player, this card was incredibly snapped. It needed to be addressed also. Once again, another card that completely needed to be addressed. It just so much value. It's a negate if it needs to be. But really what everyone's going to be using it is that it free rests a battle card or Unison card, and it draws you a card. It replaces itself and gives you value. I really understand that they had to hit this card because of the new cards that are coming out in set 16, especially the Goku Black Kamehameha. But if this card existed at 4, there was no reason to play the SPR Realm of the Gods Goku Black Kamehameha. It just did too much. What I kind of wish they did, I wish there are no cards like this in Dragon Ball Super at the moment, but in other games like Yu-Gi-Oh there are. I would have limited it to 2. I think 2 is a fair number. I don't like the limit to 1 because there are 2 different effects. You can either negate with it or you can use it to rest. Why give me a card with 2 different effects when I only get 1 copy? I think that was a little silly, and if they were gonna limit it to 1, they should have just banned it outright. Now it's a second SCR or third SCR depending on what decks you're playing. Thinking about what's coming next, but it's why limit it to one? How much value do you gain out of having just one of these cards in your deck? It's not like Cold Bloodlust where it can completely shift the tide of the game. It's so like it should have been at 2 or should have been at 0 in my opinion. But once again, a card that needed to be addressed, and they did. Going forward, I will probably be looking into using that Goku Black Kamehameha or playing Forbidden Power, because it kind of does similar things to what the Goku Black Kamehameha does, and it ignores Barrier. So that's for possible substitutes to these cards, definitely check those out, the Goku Black Kamehameha and or Forbidden Power. On the Errata list, this is my pride and joy. This is my baby. This is my boy. They absolutely neutered this card. They gave it a cost in order to play my skill list and draw one card, and they made it so that the activate battle can only be done on my turn. They should have just banned this leader. Effectively, that's what they did. Effectively, they made it really, really so mid, so incredibly mid, even below mid. But they basically banned this leader in the same way that the King Vegeta errata really just made that deck unplayable. That's what they did to this leader. I think that if you really wanted to balance this leader, I think that one of the other erratas would have been totally fine. If the activate battle could only be done on my turn, then all the activate main is giving me is 5k combo. I'm drawing 2 cards instead of 3, and it gives me, combo power. Or make it so that the activate main, the first one, is cost the energy, but the activate battle can be done on either team, either turn. Now I'm drawing 3 cards, but I'm still at least paying a mana for one of those cards. What they did now, they went from, hey, this is a leader that draws you 3 cards in the course of one rotation, my turn and your turn, from drawing 3 cards for free, very overpowered, understandable that they needed to address it, to drawing 2 cards and one of those cards costs some mana. Really, really unnecessary hit to do both, but I understand why they had to do it, because they really needed to push other yellow leaders into the spotlight. This is just such a good generic yellow leader that unless an engine that goes into a specific leader is incredibly good, like in Shinsenron, there would be no reason to play any other leader besides this one in yellow. So I understand that they had to address it, but if you needed to do all that, you might as well have just banned it. Don't give people the false hope of thinking this card could still do what it used to do when it obviously can't, and just get rid of it altogether, make them play another leader, which is what I'm probably going to go do going into set 16. I'm already looking into different leaders, no leaks, but we'll see what happens in the coming weeks. Next up on the errata list is Sungoku True Fighting Spirit. The weenies in Gogeta Xeno, and this card isn't only played in Gogeta Xeno, but it's really prevalent in that deck because they can free play it, or they don't free play it, but they get a lot of value off it from going into their whatever the fusion is that defuses into the 2 weenies, and it allows them to go into a playstyle where they can weenie rush you rather than just hit you with the 6 drop bodies, which gives them 2 different avenues of closing out games. And when a lot of decks really try to go defend against either one, they made it unique. I rarely ever see this card being played, like more than 2 of this card being resolved on board. Making it 1 is understandable. Like, it's second auto where you get punished for countering. I understand that can get a little overwhelming, especially if they have 2 copies, 3 copies, and you're just trying to survive. Like, this card punched you for trying to survive, and I don't like that. So maybe having it at 1, understandable. But once again, Gogeta Xeno has other Goku targets to go into with the defuse, and so it's not like it's going to hinder other black decks like Vegex that played this card fairly, more than it's gonna hurt Gogeta Xeno in the long run. And then finally on the errata list, this was a Unison that was in Gogeta Xeno, and it was, I would like to say it was made popular by my teammate Noel. I didn't see anyone else doing this before him, and then once he started doing it and he started topping, I think it really circulated in popularity. But this was a free draw one and remove a card from your opponent's grave with the Kai promo that bottom decks it and plays your Unison for free. This card was absolutely snapped. It took away people sparking. It took away, like if I had my Higher Dragon in grave, it was, and that was the only battle card in my grave, it removed it, so I couldn't recur that Higher Dragon. This card was a really, really good engine. Does this break the deck? No, of course not. Now they're still just going to play Mira or Pycon Unison, and they're still going to have extremely, this card gave you one extra card, but Mira, the combo power it gets from its activate battle or whatever is way worth more than one card. Does errating this Unison so that it can't be played in Gogeta Xeno break that deck? No. Gogeta Xeno is still, they targeted, there were 3 target ban/erratas to Gogeta Xeno, and it's still going to be an incredible deck. So we're just going to have to see what Bandai does going forward, or how that deck needs to be addressed. I think that thwarting needed to be addressed. A 1-drop double strike 25k that removes things and replaces itself with the leader. That was a lot of words for 1 mana, I think that was the card that really needed to be addressed. Gogeta Xeno had all these tools before that card came out and wasn't as strong, and then that card came out and now it's absolutely breaking formats. So I think that was the card that really needed to be addressed rather than these 3 other cards. But, the ban and erratas to Gogeta Xeno are definitely going to slow it down, and we're going to see if that 1-drop 25k double strike that removes a card is going to need to be addressed in the future, or if this was enough to, balance out that deck. The Deburr errata was really just, it wasn't worded correctly, so it was unable to be played the way it was supposed to be. So I don't really feel like going in depth into that one. They should have just printed the card correctly. Finally, I think this is the last. Yeah, this is the last errata that we have to talk about. The Vegeta leader. Originally it says choose up to 1 red or blue Saiyan card and discard it. You could have chosen 0 and looked at the top, 3 cards, drawn 1, and then drawn 1 from your attacks. You effectively +2 off his swing. Now you have to, it's changed to choose 1 red or blue Saiyan card and discard it. So now you have to pitch that card. It's still decent. It no longer nets you 2 cards. It only nets you 1. But, I mean, it still gives you filter, right? It still gets you those Sungoku and Vegeta BRs into your grave, or gives you the Gogeta target that you need in your hand to play. I don't see this leader being incredibly strong, but I mean, it's gonna be a fun, different deck to play. What do I think this means going forward? Icarus is dead. Unfortunately, Icarus is going to need to, people who are playing, I don't think, okay, saying something is dead is maybe an overreaction, but I think it's extremely weak now. Whereas it used to be an extremely high tier, it is now eking its way into middle tier for a leader, where all that leader did was say draw cards. And now it doesn't even do that efficiently. So now you're going to play a different leader that might draw you cards, but also has different effects that will help you throughout the game, rather than playing Icarus in the set 15 format, where it was just say, hey, draw 3 cards, now play the game with all that extra draw power, and you're just playing good cards in that deck because of just drawing tons and tons of cards. What I think should have been addressed is that I think Soul Striker probably needed to be addressed on this ban list. I think it should have been banned. I think that leader does way too much for the value, but I understand because silver bullets exist, and it definitely helps keep that deck in check. it just what the leader does, it requires you to play those silver bullets either in the main board or in the sideboard, because otherwise that deck does too much. Is it fair that we need to play those cards and that it kind of like addresses that deck? I don't know. But if we ban that leader, it gives other blue leaders the opportunity to shine, gives them a little more playability, and then gives all the other decks room to play other cards instead of those silver bullets that we were required to main/sideboard. I'm excited. I'm super excited. Back to the screen. I'm super excited for what this ban list brings to the table and how it's going to change the meta. I have really been feeling a little unmotivated to play Dragon Ball because we've been stuck in this format for so long, but I'm excited to get back into it. Stay tuned. By the way, we finally made a video. Thank you guys for anyone who's been watching, and stay tuned for more team learning and growing content that we're hopefully going to be putting out in the coming in the foreseeable future. New deck profiles, maybe some gameplay analysis. It's going to be a fun time, and I really hope you guys come along for the ride. But that being said, have a great day, and you know, I normally close out my streams by saying always tip your bartenders, but we're just going to leave it at have a great day, all right? Take care. Peace out.